Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And we have a returning guest today who appeared back in January 2022, which was just over 2 years ago, which was episode 206. Ben Turney is the CEO of Kavango Resources, who are a listed exploration company targeting world-class base and precious metal discoveries in Botswana and Zimbabwe. Ben has a background in the financial markets and also has worked in or as an investigative writer. So he's been involved in many transactions within the mining industry. He's going to give us an update on Kavango Resources since we last spoke. And a lot has happened in the last two and a bit years. So that's welcome Ben back to the podcast. How you doing, Ben?
I'm superb, Rob. Thanks very much for having me back. I can't believe it was 2 years ago we last spoke.
Yeah, it was 2 years. And as we were speaking just off camera, a lot of obviously things have happened with you guys and really a lot of positive things. And I know you've been very busy. So before we go into that, I just wondered if you can give us a little bit of background about yourself so our audience knows a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your career before we go into speaking about the company.
Brilliant. So I've been involved in public markets in the small cap space for just over 15 years now. I've done different roles, as you alluded to in your intro, your very kind intro. I've done a lot of fundraising work. I've done a lot of investigative journalism work. I've been a shareholder activist. I've run a number of companies. I've taken quite a few beatings in this market and also had some pretty big wins. So yeah, it's been quite the roller coaster, as is often the case in this space. But sitting here today, things are looking fantastic. I've been a director of Kavango since January 2021. I'd previously worked for the company for a year before that as a consultant, helping them sort out their investor relations and their fundraising. I became CEO in midway through 2021, and over the last couple of years, we've transformed the business. We've taken what was a fairly sleepy enterprise originally, and we've really sharpened our exploration. We've moved into Zimbabwe as well, and this year we started to have some really spectacular results. So yeah, the company is now starting to do well, and it's a great time to talk about it.
Yeah, good to hear. And for those that don't know Kavango Resources, just wonder if you can give us a snapshot of the company.
So we have base metal exploration projects in Botswana. We currently have 14,000 square kilometres, with our primary focus being on the Kalahari Copper Belt. We're just about to go into a 5,000 metre diamond drill campaign in the KCB, which we're very, very excited about. We now have a guy called Dave Catterall who's heading up our exploration in Bots. Dave is the go-to man for all things exploration in the KCB. He was directly behind the Zone 5 discovery that was recently sold for 1.8 billion. He's been heavily involved in other exploration on both sides of the border in both Botswana and Namibia. So we now really have the right guy at the helm who's helping us push forward on that very exciting frontier. And if we are able to prove that we've got a copper mineralizing system, that's going to be transformational for Kavango. Meanwhile, in the border to the northeast, last year we entered Zimbabwe. So we've now been active in Zimbabwe for 10 months. The business has been moving at rocket speed over the last year. We've done incredibly well. And in the space of the first year, we've set up all of our operations in Zimbabwe. We've built a strong logistics operational hub. We've recruited a superb field team, and our first results have just come in. We imported a drill rig last October. We've already proven our first resource in a tailings dump. We now have a 6,000 ounce resource, which we'll look to bring into near-term production. But more importantly, we've just released our first drill results. And so far, Rob, we've hit 2 for 2, and we've hit what we believe could be turning into 2 open pit mines, which is exactly the model we're pursuing in Zimbabwe. So our focus there is gold, and we're very excited about the potential for turning that into a significant revenue generator for Kavango over the next year and a half.
Yeah, that's brilliant to hear. Your recent news seems obviously unusual for an exploration company in that you appear to be obviously focused on near-term cash-generating opportunities. Just wonder what's the reason behind that?
So In Botswana, the exploration we've been pursuing was technically very demanding. Botswana is 70% covered by Kalahari sands, so we had to pursue geophysics-led strategy, which is, as we all know, is very difficult. Until you actually test geophysical targets with drilling, which, as we know, is the most expensive element for any exploration company, you don't actually know what's there. In Zimbabwe, however, we've got a completely different situation where so much of Zimbabwe is completely unexplored because of the country's troubles over the last couple of decades. But you have some of the world's oldest and most prospective rocks at surface. And what we've seen in Zimbabwe is enormous commercial opportunity for developing near-term, large-scale mines. And what we're particularly excited about in Zim is that the geological setting is the same as the geological setting in Western Australia. 40 years ago, Australia went through the bulk mining boom in the mid-1980s, and we know what that did for the Australian economy and how it really transformed that country, and they haven't had a recession since. They've generated so much. Well, the same opportunity exists today in Zimbabwe. It just hasn't been executed yet because it hasn't been possible with a lot of the issues that the country has faced internally. But we believe that the country is now through the worst of those. And so for a company like ours that is extremely well funded, we've got a great team behind us, we've got the right technology, the right methods, we can come in and we can move very quickly. That was our plan when we first came into Zimbabwe. And what we've achieved over the last 10 months, our team has really moved mountains. They've done fantastically well. And so we're looking to try and bring these discoveries through to production as quickly as we can.
I just wonder if you can just tell us a little bit more about the projects. And obviously, you recently moved into Zimbabwe, as you just mentioned. And I wondered if you can just tell us a little bit about that project as well.
So in Zimbabwe, there are 22 Archean greenstone belts. Now, the Archean rocks are some of the oldest rocks that are at surface in the world. They're between 2 to 2.5 billion years old. And because of their age, it means that over that time, over the eons of time, they've been through a lot of geological processes. So this is why you can find so many metal and mineral deposits in these much older rocks that are near surface. Now, it's these same Archean greenstone belts that you also see in Western Australia that gave birth to the bulk mining boom that I just mentioned. What we've decided in Kavango is to focus on one of these greenstone belts down in Matabeleland in the south of the country. And what we're doing is we're building a portfolio of individual projects looking to develop what we believe ultimately could become a world-class gold camp. So ultimately, we would love to discover 10 million ounces that can be brought into mining by piecing together a series of projects over this one greenstone belt that we're focusing on. So it's a very clearly defined strategy. We're concentrating our focus and our operational effort. One of the challenges in Zimbabwe is because there is so much opportunity down there, it could be very easy to be pulled in lots of different directions, chasing sort of new and exciting projects. But by focusing on this one area, we believe we've got an opportunity to build, ultimately, we hope, what will become a tier one gold asset.
Obviously, since we last spoke, you made tremendous progress, and obviously you've got ambitious plans for the future. Just wondering if you can just tell us how that's going to be financed.
So last year we recruited the Consagra family and the Pure Bond vehicle onto our books. We got to know the Consagras through our director, Peter Winterby. Peter has had an incredibly successful career, most recently with Kavango Resources, which he's taken from an initial $100,000 investment to a valuation in the region of about £1 billion now. They bought the Mbula copper asset in Zambia into production, and Peter has been, he's had a wonderful career. Very courageous guy. He's done a lot entrepreneurially. Now, the Consagras backed Peter. They came into the Moxico story a little bit later in the day, but they've backed Peter very heavily. And Peter introduced Bulla and Ramesh to Consagra in late 2022. They put £1.5 million in November of that year as part of our £3.5 million financing. It was really a toe in the water just to see how Kavango performed, to give them some exposure to the business. They liked what they saw, and in May last year we agreed a £6 million financing that made them our 52% shareholder. So now what that means is we've got the full backing of the Consagras. They've been hugely supportive of our management team and all of our efforts in Zimbabwe. But knowing that we have that cornerstone behind us, that's meant we've really been able to open up the throttle. And if you look at the progress that we've made over the last 12 months, rationalising and tightening our focus in Botswana and really hitting the ground running in Zimbabwe is because we know we have this extremely well-financed backstop behind us. And that's meant that our team has been given this wonderful opportunity, which they've stepped up to and really delivered. So, yeah, it's all working out really, really well. But it couldn't have been possible without the support of both Buller and Ramesh.
Obviously, exploration and mining are obviously two different businesses. How will you manage this complexity?
It's a hard one because, as you say, they are very different business models. I think a lot of people can think that exploration companies are like mining businesses. Well, they're not. They require completely different skill sets, different teams, different mindset, different operational processes. So what we've done in Zimbabwe, because of the near-term cash generating or revenue generating opportunity, we've just recently set up Kavango Mining. And what we're doing is we're pursuing the same model that there is in Zimbabwe at the moment for small-scale gold production. And our plan is to start from quite a low base, but start to build up our mining skills within Kavango as we pursue our exploration objectives. One of the things about exploration, as you know, Rob, is it can take quite a long time to deliver results, sort of going through all the mapping and the surveys you have to perform, and then all the planning and the drilling and analysing the drilling. That is not a quick process. So we have an opportunity now while we're pursuing our exploration objectives through our main exploration business. In parallel to that, we're going to grow Kavango Mining from what is quite a modest start at the moment, but it's providing Kavango with the opportunity to start to scale up so that at the point some of our more major discoveries are ready for discovery, we want to have the mining side of our business and our mining team recruited so that we're ready to make that transition into becoming a much larger cash generative business a bit later down the line. And I think this strategy, it will stand us in good stead. It means we're not biting off more than we can chew. We'll grow this organically at the right pace. But at the point we're then ready to make that step change, we'll have already put in place the foundation. So that's how we're planning on approaching this, and so far so good.
I guess some people may be thinking the mining may be a distraction for an exploration company. I just wondered if you could answer that.
Yeah, definitely. And I certainly would understand why. But I think this is where, if you look at our business now, there are two very distinct arms to it. We have the exploration side that's being run by Dave Catterall. We also have our head geologist in Zimbabwe is called Steve Smith. These are extremely experienced guys. That is segregated from Kavango Mining. So we're building the two businesses in parallel. Both are able to leverage off the same central support. So the finance we have available, the operational support, the commercial support, the logistical support, they can both draw from our central office hub that we have in the town of, in the city of Bulawayo. But the two businesses are going to be very distinct. We have a managing director already working for Kavango Mining. We're just about to appoint an ops director in Zimbabwe as well. So there'll be two very distinct teams that will be moving segregated from one another, but moving in parallel, drawing from central support.
Obviously, you just mentioned a few key positions there. I wonder if you just tell us a little bit about the management team already in place and the executive team.
So ultimately, I am the CEO, so I'm on the ground running things. But we've taken on a local mine manager to run the mines. We obviously need to have somebody who's responsible for that. We have a local business development, a guy doing business development for us. He's extremely experienced in the local area. He's been a very successful entrepreneur locally. We've recruited quite a young managing director. She's a very talented woman, extremely hardworking, has done a fantastic job for us. But we're now about to take on an ops role as well. Again, we're recruiting from somebody who's very experienced working in Zimbabwe. She is an expat, but she'll be joining our company at the end of this month on a higher salary, but that does reflect sort of what the business needs. So we're slowly but surely starting to recruit and bring in more experienced people, but drawing from the local talent pool. One of the great things about Zimbabwe is there really is a very talented, very hardworking, well-educated local workforce. So we do have quite a good pool that we can draw from to build the business up.
Obviously, you're a keen investor. I just wondered how you're seeing the markets at the moment, and maybe challenges you think the industry could be facing in the short term.
Well, it's brutal out there at the moment. For pretty much the entire sector, it is on its knees. We've had this horrendous bear market that's been going on for 3 years, where liquidity has dried up in the secondary market almost completely, and it's extremely difficult for anybody to raise meaningful funds to make meaningful progress. But at the same time, we've got this incredible contradiction where you've got gold up at 2,400, copper's back up to 9,500. The structural bull market for metals looks like it's about to really take off. But if we look at the mining sector in general, the major miners are trading at tiny multiples compared to the cash that they are generating. When I realised that there had been some issues to do with cost base and the sector has been, it's not been doing as well as it was a couple of years before. But overall, the outlook, to our mind, it looks like it's heading in one direction. So I think any companies that can make it through this time, and I think we are going to see quite a lot of failure that we haven't seen in the past, but I think that's actually going to be very good. There are quite a lot of very low quality companies out there that have been able to use the markets and keep the businesses on life support, basically paying director fees and advisor fees and not doing much else. Well, a lot of those are now being cleared up. And I think that that's actually going to serve the sector in good stead. And once we actually do see the turnaround and when we do start to see some investment funds and some speculative money start to come back, I think it's going to be a once in a lifetime opportunity for investors in this space. So we're very bullish on the future, but we see in the near term there being some hard times still to come. But once we're through all of those, I think we're all going to be looking in really great shape. And I think the next couple of years, we're going to see something really quite spectacular in this space because the numbers are all pointing in that direction. You only need to look at the metal price charts, and ultimately that will be what drives everything.
Yeah. And obviously following on from that, what kind of things would you say you're excited about within the mining industry as we move further through this year going into 2025?
Well, I'm particularly excited about copper. I think that the outlook for copper and the demands that there are going to be for copper over the next 20 years, irrespective of what you believe about the green revolution and climate change, if you look at the growth of the middle class worldwide, South America, Asia, Africa, there's going to be an enormous consumption and the demands on the copper market are already extremely intense. There haven't been enough major discoveries over the last 5 or 6 years. So there is a structural shortage coming and we're feeling, extremely excited about our project in Botswana. In terms of gold, I think gold is always going to be an extremely solid investment for any companies that are invested. And for Kavango specifically, we're very excited about the opportunity in Zimbabwe to scale up and build quite a big business. But in terms of the metal space, I'm particularly excited about copper over the next 10 years.
Yeah. And lastly, what's the outlook or plan of action for Kavango Resources as we move through 2024?
So we've just announced what we believe are 2 discovery holes in our first projects in Zim. We're currently drilling our third project at the moment. So we're going to look to return and do a bit of exploration / initial resource drilling back at our Hillside project. That hopefully will provide a significant step change for the business. We need to see the results from Nara, but what we've seen so far in the cores visually, we're very, very happy with. We're excited about that project too. In Botswana, it's going to be this high-impact 5,000-metre drill campaign. We're just about to award the contract for that. We're going to look to start within the next few weeks, and we're going to bring two rigs into this project. So we really are going to smash through that 5,000 metres as quickly as we can. And if we are able to prove that we've got a copper mineralising system within our ground, well, it really is going to be off to the races for Kavango. So touch wood, everything will go our way, and we might be able to speak in a few months' time and have a bit of less of a gap compared to when we last spoke.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. So obviously, I appreciate your time coming on and give us an update on Kavango. And as you mentioned, it was 2 years that we spoke, and you've done so much since then. So please obviously come back on later this year and give us an update on obviously some of the projects that you're working on, some of the drill results that hopefully you'll be getting. So we should speak sooner rather than later. And also, if our audience obviously wants to reach out to you, if they want to follow your story, how can they go about doing that? What social media platform channels are you on?
We're very active on Twitter. So if you Google Kavango Resources for our Twitter account, our website is kavangoresources.com. That's KAVANGO resources.com. And our ticker symbol is KAV. So it's easy enough to find our announcements and follow us online. And I'd really appreciate the opportunity, hopefully in a few months' time, to come back and talk about some results where hopefully our team will have knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, certainly. And we wish you all the best over the coming months. And obviously with the progress that you've made so far, I'm sure those results will be positive. So thank you again, Ben, for coming onto the podcast.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah. Hope you enjoyed that episode. As always, appreciate your continued support. Please keep sharing these episodes far and wide. And obviously, looking at what Ben's achieved with Kavango in a short space in 2 years, even though our markets are down, or the mining industry as a whole, positive things can still happen. And as Ben has shown with Kavango, a lot of work can go quite far. And obviously, they've moved heaven and earth over the last 2 years. So there is good stories out there, and our mining industry is just at the bottom, I think, of the curve, and there's so much more to come. So appreciate your continued support. Please keep sharing these episodes. And until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes, and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.